And here we are for our final hour of today's show. Jason Ross, JayMarZZ, Kyle Ledbetter running the show. No Carmichael Davies back with us next week. But we continue our split show. I'm here in Vegas. Jay's back in our studios. Chair dancing as usual.
Hey now, anytime Bobby Brown's on,
it's Bobby B. Bobby B.
How can you not chair dance when my prerogative comes on?
I know. Hey, it is your prerogative.
Good point.
And you're doing it. And we're going to continue out here in Vegas, out at the King's Shoot-Around right now. From Fox 40, the one, the only, Sean Cunningham joining us. Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Gentlemen, staring at it. I'm actually going to be en route to shoot around here in a second because I'm staring at the high limit tables. Yeah, I'm staring at those high limit tables at the hotel here. I think I can take them.
Your name? Take them down. What's the when you say high limit? What's that number?
Oh, I don't know. I'm looking at it from afar, and I look at it and I go, I've played a couple hands with Jason, and sometimes I get a little intimidated by the folks around me and possibly their knowledge of the game. And I feel like high limit might be for me because there's no pressure because there's literally nobody in there.
Well, there's a reason those casinos are built, Sean. They've succeeded here in Vegas. Vegas has won.
And there's a reason why all the high limit people have been scared off.
I don't know. I think I could say there's actually a roulette one though. I never thought there'd be a roulette table in there. That's kind of my game.
That is your game. I know firsthand as we're talking with Sean Cunningham from Fox 40. Sean, you had Jay and I were talking about this early in the show. It's like, wait, did he have surgery? Did he not have surgery? Will he have surgery? What do you know about Domantas Sabonis and kind of the story that's kind of lingering right now about him and his thumb?
Well, I mean, it was certainly I wouldn't say it was surprising if it had been true, the comments that were made by his Lithuanian national coach, because I think many people were almost expecting it to possibly happen before the start of the season if this rehabilitation didn't take it. In fact, that was the plan that Domantas Sabonis himself had spoken to us about, even when as recently as a little over a month ago when I went with him to the zoo for an event out there. And he had talked about how the rehab process was going and how surgery had not yet been eliminated. And in fact, the day I spoke to him at the Sacramento Zoo, he had another scan to see how things were healing. But that even if surgery was on the table, that it wouldn't impact the start of the season and he'd be ready for training camp. So certainly nothing for anybody to get too concerned with, but seeing that and finding out that it hasn't been true, that he has not yet had surgery, was certainly good news. You don't want to go under the knife for any reason, but Domantas Sabonis has a young child and another one on the way due next month, I believe. So I think that might even factor into the equation a little bit. Maybe get the baby here, see how things go, and if he has to go under the knife, he's prepared to do so. But hopefully things progress naturally and he's able to heal up fine and still be ready for camp. Either way, that's the good news for Kings fans, is that he will be expected to be ready for camp and wouldn't have any setbacks.
Sean Cunningham from Fox 40 joining us this morning on the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Sean, you got a chance to spend some time with Harry Giles and check out his workout he did for NBA teams, NBA scouts. Talk a little bit about what you saw at the workout, your time with Harry, and is there a realistic scenario that he can find himself on an NBA roster again?
Yeah, it's certainly looking like it. It was fun I will admit, it's a little weird to go to a middle school in Vegas where they're posting, several players that are working out in front of NBA teams that an agency holds. I mean, for people who don't know, the other player that was one of the other players that was working out for about a handful, talking about 9 to 10 NBA teams that were there. Unfortunately, no, the Kings were not one of them, but that doesn't mean that there won't be interest in one way or the other. They can always bring one of those players in for their own individual workout, so it doesn't preclude them from making any kind of move or having interest in a player. But I will say it was very weird to see the likes of Harry Giles and Dion Waiters, who's a little bit longer in the tooth, try to, work out for teams and, try to spark some interest. John Wall and Isaiah Thomas also had workouts out here among some of the other names. But yeah, I think as much as I've been asked about Harry Giles over the past, 72 hours, the best I can say is he looks like Harry Giles. I mean, he looks like he's in terrific shape. I think conditioning and cardio is still something that might be a little shock to his system, just because he hasn't had to work out like an NBA player and go through some of the things, of the rigors of an NBA workout, and especially with the running, over the past really year. So as he's gearing up towards this, getting in NBA shape will be certainly a challenge and be something different. But the skills are there, and I think the most encouraging thing to hear from him is that he feels 100% healthy, no pain in the knees, and looks like he likes to remind people that he never really suffered a major injury or a big knee injury while he was an NBA player. All these things preclude his NBA career when he was in his development stages of life. So there's a lot of doctors, especially in certain teams, that have been scared away if there's inflammation around the knee or swelling around the knees, things that they've had to draw attention to, or certainly maybe give some time and patience to for an NBA player who's going through some development. And many teams like the Kings initially had some, put some patience and time into trying to develop him, and then immediately pull the plug when there's a little bit of a concern there. So that also has to do with what track the team he currently resides on at the time is on. So you have the Kings who are trying to make this upward trajectory. He goes to Portland. He was ended up with the Clippers on their G League squad, and then he ultimately just feels like maybe it's not going to happen for him. So here he is, almost 2 years later, really, since his last NBA experience, 25 years old, with skills that he has as a former high school player of the year. And, there's a lot of intrigue around him. So don't be surprised now that there's this rule where guys have eligibility because of being injured or not being able to play or being held back for rehab concerns, to where now he can have another year of eligibility as a two-way player. And, oh, by the way, you've got teams that have an additional two-way contract on their team this year. So, I think a lot of stars are aligning in the right spot for him. I'm glad you asked me about the interview, because I'll actually be able to post it today and have the full interview out there, and we'll have a bigger story later on Fox 40 coming in the coming weeks or in the coming days. But certainly a lot to like about Harry Giles. I think there's a lot of teams that are interested, and it could be fun to see if he can land a two-way contract or even a roster spot before training camp starts.
Sean, the last part of your answer may be the answer to this question, but Jay and I had it earlier. We basically asked about the three former Kings that are trying to get back in this league, and we mentioned Isaiah earlier, Harry Giles, and Ben McLemore. Kind of what would you rank as the best chance of those three to get back in the NBA?
Yeah, certainly I would circle Harry Giles for sure. I think Ben would be next, but I think Ben has had a tremendous sample size of things he can do in the league. I think he's never really risen to the star level that maybe some people thought he would be coming out of Kansas, and really being a top level high school prospect in the States. And having bounced around from team to team, there's a lot of people who are familiar with his game. I think the way people look at Harry Giles in that regard is, this is a guy who still has a lot of unknown around him. They'd like to see him play maybe a full season, maybe with consistent minutes, to see if a lot of the potential is there. And for him, it's more of the low risk, high reward. Whereas Ben McLemore has traveled around, played so many different roles, and is really kind of an NBA veteran at this point. Certainly can provide some athleticism and some shooting. Defense is always a little bit of a question, but a little bit more known about what Ben McLemore can bring, as opposed to somebody like Harry Giles, where it could be this untapped potential that if all things go right for him and he can remain healthy, could really blossom into something special. But then again, you've got a lot of people throughout the league that will doubt that based on his injury history, whether or not doctors will allow him to go in a way. They may hold him back if his knees react in a certain way.
Sean Cunningham joining us this morning. Sean, you mentioned that NBA teams now have a third two-way contract to offer teams. The Kings still have their third and final two-way deal still available. A guy who's really stuck out in Summer League, both in the California Classic and in Vegas, is local product Jordan Ford. Do you think he is a candidate for that third two-way contract?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I'll take it a step further, guys. I think he's a candidate beyond that. He could be a third guard on this team, and I think that's the ultimate goal. And he's got the coaching staff raving about him, and I think people will look at him and they'll see the scoring and go, wow, he's really done well here in Vegas. And it really, Jason, I think you can attest to this, goes beyond that. He's really pushes the pace incredibly, which is they're trying to play a system that's very similar to what Mike Brown runs in Sacramento. They want this style of play to emulate what the Kings do. And him having that experience with so many guys in Stockton this past year, which also had a great deal of success. Let's not forget, even though they got bounced early in the playoffs, they were like the hottest team in the G League. So having that familiarity with a lot of these players, him pushing the pace. He's got an elite handle. And, oh, by the way, now he's scoring. And we saw in that last game, even though some of these games have been absolute dreck to watch, he was an absolute bright spot. So him and Colby Jones, I think, if you had to pin a gold star on two players that have excelled in the summer league, they are two of them. And I think based on the success that he's had, some of his experience, I think Jordan Ford could give a good push to be that third guard, even on the roster, if not a two-way. And I honestly feel like, that could be the next step for Jordan, is being a two-way. I'd rather not see him in the G League, because I feel like you already kind of know what to expect from Jordan Ford. I think he's ready for the NBA shot, and him being, even if it doesn't translate to rotational minutes, him being a third guard, being ready to go, push the pace, having that elite handle, being a willing defender, despite some of his, shortcomings on the physical side, would be a nice thing to see for him.
Anyone else out here from the Kings that's been in the Summer League squad have a chance in your mind?
Oh, I mean, I think there's a big question mark with Neemias Queta. Unfortunately, his Summer League has come to an end. He's a restricted free agent. I think they're going to allow teams to maybe see if he can get an offer to become a roster spot anywhere else, and then have a decision to make as to whether or not they want to bring him back as a center on this team. But I think they might look at Neemias Queta and feel that another two-way contract might be in his best interest. But that's a beautiful thing about being a restricted free agent. You can let the market kind of dictate where your guys are at before you have to make a decision. So he's not playing anymore, obviously, with the foot injury and the soreness the sprain that he has in his foot. My own personal belief is I don't think Neemias Queta, you're going to learn a whole lot about him playing in Summer League. I don't think there's really any unanswered questions. To me, I think the real fault was not seeing him play so much in his rookie season. They kept him around the big team in the NBA to be able to practice around him, and then transition to where he was able to spend more time in Stockton and play a bigger schedule for Stockton last year. And I think he did an amazing job with that. He ended up with all league honors, and it translated into team success, as you know. And I think the next step for him is to really see him around NBA talent. And it's just unfortunate that I don't know that those minutes would really exist on the Kings level.
Well, Sean, we hope you take down the big money table and get yourself to shoot around, and then we will see you out at the game later tonight. We want everybody to check out your Harry Giles piece and everything else you got going for Fox 40. So thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem anytime, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.